Tanager Place and the Meraki Institute of Learning proudly present Together We Rise, a series on capturing the journeys of resilience and well-being based on the Rise, Wellness, and Resilience framework. For those of you who are joining us today for the first time, this show is a series digging deep into the concept of resilience. In this interview series, we are talking to those in the corridor who have exhibited courage and strength in the face of hardship. These individuals are here with us to share their personal story of resilience. We hope this series will inspire hope and possibility in others. Because when we call on our courage and show up in the midst of struggle, we offer a bright place and to not give up. Together we can rise with the means to manage, restore, and grow. Welcome, Larry. Thank you so much for being here today and being a part of this project. Larry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Larry. Larry Johnson. I'm a school-based clinician, father, fan of martial arts and learning, and a Cedar Rapids community member since 2007. So.
Okay, and you're a graduate from Cedar Rapids School District as well, right?
Yes, I am.
Which I think is a powerful piece of your story because you're a graduate of Washington High School and you're the therapist at Washington High School now as well.
Yes.
Larry, you and I had an opportunity to talk a little bit about your story and your journey. And you have certainly had a path of some adversity and some struggle, but that path has also led you to a place sitting here in front of me today as what I would describe as an incredibly resilient, kind, talented man. And so tell me a little bit about that journey.
I was, born to a mother, and I can't really say anything about my dad because I never met him. So that from the beginning, I think, was one of those initial pieces of adversity, not having that father figure, but then to go on and have several siblings as well. I'm the only one with my complexion, and so within Black culture, I think being biracial is a very challenging thing because you don't fit in, but overtly for me as a kid, I remember, them making a note about my light skin complexion, and that was really hard for me because there was a lot of times where I didn't fit in and didn't feel like I did. And I think from that, it just kind of tumbled forward. My mom, having several kids, her first priority obviously was to provide for us, but her second priority was a love life of her own. And so that made it really challenging for us because our perception was that her need for love and connection was more important than us. And so we all had our struggles, and a few of us actually left home. We didn't stay, we went into the system. I spent some time in Wisconsin. And while I was there, I had another whole set of struggles because she sent me to live with someone that I knew wasn't my dad, but he thought he was my dad, so I stayed there. And he had gotten himself into some legal issues while he was there, and actually part of it involved a prostitution ring, actually. And so for a while there, I actually was just bouncing around from friend's house to friend's house for several months before he just popped up. And I was out of nowhere. He's like, yeah, we're going to go to Superior. So I had to leave all my friends inside of 48 hours. And so that was really hard for me too because, I loved it there. Yeah. And I went to Superior, new school, didn't really know anybody except the family that I was living with. And unfortunately for them, the person who was titled or labeled my dad at the time was just not a kind person. And so he, other decisions impacted my ability to stay there, but that he kind of tore that family apart. And so I actually was stuck in Duluth, Minnesota, because there was no group homes close to Superior at the time. And so I was there for 4 weeks, and it took them that long to contact the state of Iowa, to contact my mom, to make arrangements. So that's actually my first experience on a plane. They had to fly me back to Iowa. So I got back to Iowa at about 11 or 12, and at that point, I was different. I was changed, and nothing felt like home. So I was only with my mom for another couple years before I found myself again in the system due to my own inability to struggle and cope and trying to fit in with the wrong crowds. And so I made some poor choices of my own. I was fortunate enough to find a foster mom who was just, I don't know, she's just great. She just believed in me and saw everything that was there the whole time. That's actually how I found myself to be at WASH. And when I got there, it was seriously one of the greatest experiences of my life. I met some of my best friends there. I actually was able to run track, and this is something that I had been passionate about forever and just off and on really didn't get to do it because in between placements, I would miss seasons sometimes and stuff. I went from there and was able to pursue a 4-year degree and then an additional 2 years for my master's. There was just lots of having to figure things out on my own. And so I know statistically that foster kids are expected to not do any of the things that I've been fortunate enough to be able to do. I think the stat is like 3% are expected to get a 4-year degree. And I always remembered that because I don't like being told what I can and can't do. So I was very much out to prove that I could do whatever I wanted to, and to improve on that and go on and further my degree even more. But yeah, it definitely took some growing up on my part that I maybe shouldn't have had to do at such a young age.
Yeah. You know, I've gotten the privilege to hear different parts of your story, and it always makes me believe in the beauty behind resilience and the beauty behind the elements that help us cultivate resilience in our life. One of the core things that I've heard you talk about throughout that journey is different relationships that stood out to you. And always being on the receiving end of trying to take what you could from those relationships and learn and grow yourself from them. Tell me about the power of relationships and how they have influenced you throughout your life to be where you are today.
I think, yeah, I don't know, my take on relationships is definitely a unique one because I recognize that family is not, to me, the traditional meaning of this is something I was born into.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you create your family throughout your lifespan, right? The people that are there for you and the people that support you. And so I may not have traditional family, well, I do, but not so much as many people do in the sense of like uncles and cousins and things like that. But I have really good friends that I can rely on, that I could call up in the middle of the night and they'll be there for anything. So I think when you're younger and you go through the things that I experienced, you kind of create this perception that you are on your own most of the time. And so even as an adult now, I still struggle to ask for help when I need it. Through those relationships, I think I was able to soften that quite a bit. And that's been really helpful for me because, you know, I now have 2 boys of my own that I have to influence, and I want to be able to teach them rational thinking and functional thinking. So.
And some of those relationships I've heard you talk about is friends whose parents, you know, treated you with love and kindness and didn't just see you as a kid who lived in the system, who lived in foster care, but saw you for your strengths and your talents and humanness. Teachers who believed in you, and I've heard you talk about even social workers. You know, part of you've given back a lot to Teenager Place and being involved in our residential treatment program. You know, because you once were a kid who had staff care about your well-being and your future. How did that impact your life?
I think it's hard because there's a few different narratives that kind of float around when it comes to kids being put in placement. And one of the narratives, the primary one, is that the kid is just like in this awful situation with these people that completely don't understand him. And aspects of that are true. But in my specific situation, I think that I was rescued, so to speak, because I remember being a kid and it would always be something that frustrated me, but people would make comments about the way that I spoke, that I spoke too well. And I think the comment was like, you sound white, right? And then the statement inherently suggests that anything intelligent has to be associated with something that's non-black, right? And so my blackness was constantly being questioned all the time.
In the midst of, I'm sure, trying to stay alive in the streets, because you talk very much so about what that life was like as an adolescent.
Yeah, I just think like, I don't know, I don't know, I think the staff members and the people that I met along the way just made me realize that there are genuine people out there that actually just want to help. They just want to help. They see something that you don't see and they just want to help. And so I think if there was a message even that I could send to the Black community, is that support is out there. It's available. Is it a risk? Sure, but not really. It feels like a risk, but it's a lot less of one than you think it is, really. It's just an opportunity to provide as much support as possible. And the truth is that my mom had her hands full. She did. She was financially tied, socially tied. There were so many things that she just couldn't do at the time, and there was no shame in that. And maybe she thought that there was, and that prevented her from seeking some of the services that myself and my siblings would have benefited from. But I benefited from it firsthand, and so for me, I'm just really grateful for it.
Yeah, one of the common themes that I hear you talk about is the adults who just believed in you. And so in moments when you didn't even believe in yourself, it offered kind of a mirror to believe in yourself and believe in the possibilities. They gave you different experiences than what you had through the earlier years to think, oh, there are other possibilities for my life journey, and I can kind of rewrite that narrative. What were some of the things along the way that helped cultivate that like self-awareness and insight and personal reflection, as I know that's such a big piece of your journey?
I think part of it had to do with a fear of failure a little bit, because, you know, when you're on your own or you're transitioning on your own, if you know, end up in some facility somewhere, I mean, you're just on your own. You know, I was in one facility for, I don't know, I think it was like 13 months or something like that. Maybe longer, maybe a little less, but I remember I saw my mom once during that time. And so like that experience right there really ingrained in me that, hey, you're on your own and you have to figure this out. And so for me, I feel like failure is not as much of an option because I have a lot less to fall back on. And so every time, whatever the situation is, for me, it's not even a secondary thought that there's a way that this won't work.
Yeah.
Like the concept doesn't really apply to me. And so in some ways, it's probably conditioning, hardened conditioning of some sort from those experiences.
We talk in the RISE framework in the indicators of well-being, this essence of efficacy, that when we cultivate our own efficacy or cultivate that in others, you know, and highlight like perseverance and to work through hard things and don't give up. And it's not just about the end result, but it's about the journey along the way. And it seems like you throughout felt this essence of efficacy, that you could set a goal or vision for yourself and that little steps along the way could help you reach what those goals were. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah, I think like, I don't know, when I think of like baby steps and like efficacy, it sounds strange, but it's almost like you have to experience small successes to be able to believe that there's a possibility of bigger success.
Yeah, that sense of capable.
Yeah, you just need to think that, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a kid, and that's one of the things that we struggle with rehabilitation services in general, is just the concept that if it's from a disciplinary approach, then it's all about telling a person what they've done wrong and how they're not doing something right. And you know, our recidivism rate for the correction system is evidence of that, right?
Yeah.
Telling someone that they're not capable of doing something based on the decisions that they made, instead of being able to course correct and give them the tools that they need to make better decisions.
Yeah, and I'm guessing too, help them feel a sense of some connection and belonging. One of the things that I remember within your story is that sense of belonging at your foster home. And beyond belonging, this sense of safety, like predictability, consistency. You know, you talked about her rules and her expectations, and although it felt kind of strict, it gave you this sense of predictability in life that offered you to kind of thrive in some ways, and to rise up. Tell me a little bit about that relationship and that experience and how that, for you, cultivated a lot of your potential of moving forward.
I think one of the things was we always had yard work to do, and at the time I was not happy about it. You know, if you want to go do something on the weekends and you don't have to work that weekend or something, well, you have to make sure that the yard is mowed and all that stuff, and I used to think it was so silly. But here I am now, 30, and I'm so invested and interested in like gardening myself, and it's so funny how everything goes back full circle, because for me it's calming. It's so calming. It's a time where I'm not focused on anything else, and when your hands are in the soil, there's something just really, I don't know, there's just something that fills my cup about it. But you know, with my foster mom, I think one of the big things was that she provided this sense of normal that I didn't really know was possible. I thought it was just on TV. Case in point, we ate dinner at the dinner table. Sounds weird, right? Like, why does that matter? But I never did it before. I never ate at the dinner table. And now my kids, every single meal, breakfast, dinner, lunch, on the weekends, everything we eat at the table. Because to me, I realize how much connection takes place then. How much time it is where you just sit down, and the Mediterranean perspective or lifestyle, they believe that eating is a social thing and should be, and I believe in that. So there was these philosophies and these things that I got from her that I still use now.
In the RISE framework, we talk about this element of experiences, that our experiences shape who we are. So even when we're working with youth or adults who have gone through really, really difficult experiences, we have the opportunity to expose them to new experiences to help rewrite, you know, that life narrative. And it sounds like you got exposed to a lot of other experiences that allowed you to see a bigger world, allowed you to have hope. Tell me a little bit about how that concept of hope played into your resilience.
I think for me, it's really strange. You don't know that you're experiencing something like life-changing until after it's happened.
Sure.
It's the weirdest thing. I remember in college, my freshman year, we were able to go to Barbados, which was so cool. It was this, like, I'd never been out of the country before. And I went, and I remember arriving, and I don't know what it was, but the whole time I was there, we were there for 10 days, and every day I woke up just as mind blown as I was the day before. Because I was this little poor kid, however many years before, right? Like 15 years prior, right? Or 14 or whatever.
Yeah.
I was this young kid that didn't have anything and didn't come from anything. And my mom, still to date, hasn't been on a plane, and I'm in another country right now.
Yeah.
And all because I went to school, and I was thinking to myself, how is this even possible? And since then, I've gone on to do so many more things and have so many more experiences because I realized that I'd only confined myself. My environment was this reflection of what I thought the rest of the world looked like. But I just needed to step outside of that illusion.
Yeah.
The world is a very big place, and we can create whatever it is that we want to.
Yeah. I'm guessing so much of that has then led to your journey of being a therapist. And there are several things that come to mind for me, but your life experiences and the struggles you face allow you to have a different level of attunement and connection to those who are also experiencing struggle. And I'm guessing for you that gives your life purpose and gives you kind of this legacy to leave in this world. How does that continue to cultivate your well-being?
For me, I don't know what it is, but there's something about these 45-minute increments where I literally just get to tune into a new world, someone else's world. And that's what I get to do. It's like I have all these globes in my office or something like that, and every 45 minutes I get to pick up a new one, and someone else is in there. And for me, at the end of the day, I get to leave knowing that my efforts were more than just like, money earned or time spent or anything like that. It was actually, it did something. It created some type of change. I had a role in finance and sales, in the past, and it was a big role. It was a notable one, and I had, the power, but I didn't have that sense of purpose, and that part was missing, and I can't state it enough. That is one of the most primary pieces of what can allow a person to move forward professionally.
Yeah.
If they don't have that sense of purpose, they can't continue to do what they do. Yeah. I got to a point where I was just unhappy going into work, but I'm so excited to go to work every day. I'm excited to get off, but I'm excited to go in, So yeah, it just makes me feel that the time spent is helping generations, and maybe the work that I'll do will impact other generations. If I've got one kid, one me in my office who maybe would have ended up incarcerated, maybe that person then goes on and does all the things that they were meant to do and passes that on to his kids who would have then inherently, received these other type of traumas, but instead those are all disappeared. So I kind of like to think of it as like some butterfly effect to some degree. And that's what I hope that I'm doing in my work.
Yeah. How do you help stay rooted in that? And when you're hearing the pain of others' stories, but also knowing like your own resilience and that their life has so much potential, how do you communicate that to so many people that you're impacting?
Patiently. I work with teenagers, so it's funny. I remember being a teenager, and I'm always like, was I like this as a teenager? And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
Probably yes. So my answer would be patiently. But yeah, I think you just have to stay. I would consider myself to be obsessive to some degree about certain things. It's part of my personality.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that I've been good at in my life have allowed me to be where I am because I was obsessive about them, about my running, about making sure that I didn't skip too many classes, or do whatever it was that I needed to do to survive. Discipline.
Yeah.
And so my work is the same way. I mean, I get comments all the time, like, why are you sending emails at this time of night? Because I need to learn how to stop working. But I'm working on that.
But you feel this deep meaning of purpose, and it gives your life meaning, it sounds like. And it's a way for you to give back into a world that, you didn't have a lot of control over for the first handful of years of your life. And although you didn't have control over that, rather than take that and let it define your future, you're rewriting the story so that you can give hope to other people's futures. Larry, one of the things that stands out to me is you've talked about, because of the life struggles you face, kind of this undertone of anxiety and how you take care of you. you know, in this connection of what we call in Rise, our enhancements, like our mind, body, spirit. What are practices that you take on a daily, weekly basis to hone in on your own wellness?
I'd say, like, when it comes to the pursuit of wellness, that the idea is that it's always going to be a pursuit. Unless you're Gandhi, who maybe possibly did achieve the state of wellness, I think it's always something that you're pursuing, because new things enter your environment, your ecosystem, that cause you to make adjustments. But for me, I try to be physically mindful, and try to be mindful of the things I put in my body. I try to drink water. I try to get good rest. But I try to find time to do the things that I enjoy doing. Graphic novels, like comic books, anything Marvel related, anything, literally anything. I try to make sure I take time to escape that world that I'm in as well, because it allows me to rest a little bit.
Yeah, you've talked about like mindfulness and, you know, being conscious with eating and those pieces. I'm guessing for you, you know, to take care of your brain and your mind, you have to take care of your body and have structure and daily routines and that discipline that you talked about in order to continue to cultivate your wellness, because it's not something that you just arrive at and you feel well. It's something that is a life journey. Larry, one of the things that continues to stand out to me is that you have spent a lifetime really cultivating your own self-awareness and what we talk about in the RISE framework as kind of our social and emotional development. How and why have you found that so helpful in your journey?
I don't know, when it comes to like the emotional development aspect of it, socially, who has a social life when they have kids? But I think for me, I recognize that I only have so much time with my boys, and it means that I know it sounds like it's so long, right? Like 18 years, but my oldest is 6 already. Like, I can't even process that sometimes, and I have 12 years left to teach him as much as I possibly can. And don't get me wrong, the relationship will remain throughout our lifespan, right? But also, the time that he's under my roof, the time that I have to pass down some of those aspects and principles of discipline, I just don't have that long. And so things like that remind me to stay tuned in. And, you know, I think when Gabriel and Roman go on and do their things, I think I'll hopefully be able to rest, knowing that I did everything I could have to send good human beings into the world who are ready to create positive change.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that such a piece of that is constantly being reflective and perspective taking and really thinking about how you are able to offer a relationship to them that is centered and grounded. One of the things that I've heard you talk about is this idea of journaling, you know, and how much journaling has brought different amount of peace and healing to your own life. And I guess the thing that it makes me think about is like narrative therapy and take what our experiences are and reflect in a way that allows us to re-narrate some of that, to offer new chapters into our book.
Yeah.
Tell me how that has offered healing for you.
When I was in the different placements that I spoke about, I actually had this, I think it was one of my primary, and she actually assigned me to start writing, and I realized that she creatively said that my assignment was to do this many, assignments per week, and I could write about whatever I wanted and however I wanted to. And it ended up being poetry that I found, and I continued to do it, and even still sporadically now do it. And there was something about it that was so liberating, because I could hide messages in there, and there was something safe about that. I could say something that might be offensive, I could say something that might be hurtful to someone, but I said it in a safe space where I didn't feel like it was going to be compromised, and where it wasn't going to be judged, and it wasn't going to be disregarded. So I'm an avid lover of all things narrative, but I'm also really big into the idea that we are all living our own movies. So in this very moment, everyone in this room is a side character in my movie, and in different perspectives. Tarantino's my movie Blown. It's the same way for them, right? And so I think that narrative therapy allows us to be really in tuned into that director role. This is your movie, and you do get to determine where it goes, but you have to be willing to take the director's chair.
Tell me a little bit about advice that you would give, or what you have done over the last several years living in a society that struggles with intense systematic racism, and being a Black man in this community, and also providing therapy to a lot of Black students who are facing traumas every day related to their race and their cultures. What piece of advice, or what can you give for those who are feeling alone in that?
I would just remind people that the concept of race itself was invented, to remember that. And so it's so easy to have these preconceived notions about what you think someone is or isn't based on a race that was created. Well, it's not really a basis for anything. Culture is based on the place that you live, the things that you experience, right? Like, I think that it's really hard to be black right now in today's time, but it's not as hard as it was 400 years ago, right? And so the thing is, we have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations about preconceived notions that may be true, may be false, but also we have to find the humility in all of it too. Like, you know what? I think that there's an opportunity for people to admit that social structures exist that need to be changed. Is it going to cost a lot of wealthy people some money? Sure. Is it going to cost the rewriting? Is it going to take the rewriting of some laws and policies? Sure. But at the end of the day, we all share this planet together. And so if we destroy it and do everything else we're going to do, we're all going to go out together. And so I think that the concept of treating someone differently based on appearance alone it's almost archaic. I've always thought it was the strangest thing when you meet someone. Hi, nice to meet you. So what do you do for work? Right? We ask these people these questions to determine how we should interact with them. And what a person does for work in no way defines who they are. It's a small piece of it, small piece of the mosaic tile, right? But we are constantly gauging one another to try to determine how we should interact instead of just taking it down to a human level. Tell me about yourself. I'm just meeting you for the first time. Tell me about who you are.
Yeah. Larry, I appreciate your voice so much. It matters, and I think it builds a bridge and gives voice to others who may not feel like they have the courage or the power to share that voice. If there was one last piece of advice that you would give to someone who is struggling right now, who may have had similar experiences to yours, and how to get through the hard times, what would that be?
To not be afraid to ask for help. I mean, even me, who is now a clinician, I've had struggles with anxiety myself. And the pandemic alone and everything else, in this world is influenced a lot for a lot of people. And so it's okay to literally not be okay. I think it's very easy for us to put people on pedestals, and we see these celebrities and we see all these things that are smoking mirrors, but none of that in any way reflects reality. People struggle sometimes. That's okay.
Larry, thank you so much. Your story is inspirational,
and
I have no doubt that it offers aid to a lot of people who are watching. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Connection is so fundamental to who we are, understanding that if you can find people or a person, that can often be the difference.
Life choices I made may be the reason that I'm having a harder time, and not feeling shame in that.
I'm here for a reason, and my future self is going to be so thankful that I didn't throw in the towel because it got tough.
I am who I am, but I will never be able to be the part of somebody else.
It will get better. No matter how bad it is. It won't get perfect, it won't go away, but it will get better.
We all want to be heard. We all want to be felt like we matter, and we all want to be loved. That's universal.
No matter the challenges you and your family face, Tanager Place is here for you. We'll meet you wherever you are in your journey, and together define a path to reach your goals. Together we rise. Tanager Place.
Thank you again for joining us today and for spending time with us. We hope today's segment offered hope and healing. Today's series brought to you by Tanager Place and the Meraki Institute of Learning. For more information, please visit our website